Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The next one is a pro-revenge story. My name is Alex, and growing up, my older sister Sarah and mom never really got along. Even from my earliest memories, they were constantly butting heads. Mom was born and raised in a small village in the Philippines. Her family was dirt poor. She was one of 9 kids. Despite the hardship, Mom worked her way through college and became the first in her family to graduate. Education was everything to her. Over the years, she paid for several of her siblings to attend college too. Sarah saw our extended family in a different light. She felt some of them took advantage of Mom's generosity, especially those who dropped out of school after Mom paid their tuition. This was a huge point of contention between them. When Sarah graduated high school, things came to a head. She moved out and didn't speak to Mom for 5 years. During that time, Sarah worked full-time and paid her own way through college. We reconnected at my high school graduation. Their relationship was still strained, but better than before. However, the rift between them never fully healed. 2 years ago, we lost Mom. I was devastated, but Sarah stepped up. She took over financially supporting our youngest aunt, Jana, and Jana's daughter's college fund. Sarah also handled all the funeral arrangements and estate matters. I don't know what we would have done without her. Last year, Sarah and I visited the Philippines over the holidays. One evening, we went to Jana's for dinner. Out of nowhere, Jana started criticizing Sarah. She blamed her for not having a better relationship with Mom. Went on about how Sarah wasn't ladylike enough and would never find a husband. Then Jana turned to me, saying I shouldn't be like my sister. I was shocked when Sarah spoke up. She asked Jana why she'd dropped out of college after Mom paid for it, and hinted about Jana's affair with a married businessman. Jana flew into a rage, saying she didn't need anything from Sarah. That's when it dawned on me what was about to happen. On the drive back, Sarah confirmed she was cutting off Jana's support. Over the next few days, we relaxed at the beach while the firestorm brewed. When I got back, I heard Jana was scrambling over the loss of funds. I called Sarah to give her an update. Turns out, there was enough set aside to cover Jana for the year, although she'll have to budget more carefully now if she wants to stay in the house. Thankfully, Sarah didn't touch Jana's daughter's college money. She felt the kid shouldn't suffer for her mom's mistakes. I don't know exactly how things will shake out with our family, but I suspect Sarah won't lose any sleep over it. She stood up for herself and for our mom, and I'm proud of her for that. The first one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my house for over 15 years and never had any issues with neighbors or the homeowners association. That all changed when Helen moved in across the street last year. From day one, she's been nothing but a nuisance, complaining about every little thing under the sun. I tried to be patient and brush it off, but Helen took things too far when she tried claiming a piece of my property belonged to the homeowner association. This all started when I decided to extend my backyard patio. My property sits right on the edge of the community park area, with just a small strip of grass separating my fence from the park's walking trail. I obtained all the proper permits from the city and hired a contractor to extend my patio several feet towards the walking trail. A few days into the project, Helen came marching over in a huff. She started lecturing me that I couldn't extend my patio because it was encroaching on homeowner association property. I calmly explained that the land was mine, not the homeowner association's, and showed her the property survey I had on hand. Helen refused to look at it, going on about homeowner association regulations and land rights. After 10 frustrating minutes, I finally got her to leave, thinking that was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. The very next morning, I arrived at my house to find Helen at the construction site with a police officer. She had a smug look on her pinched face as she pointed at my patio extension. The officer asked to see my permits, so I presented them, explaining I had full rights to the land. But to my shock, the officer believed Helen when she insisted it was homeowner association property. No matter how many times I showed the property survey proving my ownership, he took her side. When I demanded evidence that the homeowner association owned the land, Helen hemmed and hawed before thrusting a crudely drawn map in my face. It showed a new property line that conveniently gave the homeowner association the strip of land I was building on. The officer studied Helen's crayon drawing intently before declaring I had to cease construction immediately. I was furious. This was my land that I paid good money for. I had legal documents proving it, yet the cops were siding with Helen and her kindergarten quality map. Unbelievable. As the cops drove away, Helen stood there with her scrawny arms crossed, a triumphant gleam in her beady eyes. "All land belongs to the homeowner association," she declared snootily. "Don't like it? Take it up with the board." Oh, I planned on taking it up all right. I scheduled an emergency hearing with the homeowner association board to address this injustice. A few days later, I sat across from the board members as they glanced disinterestedly at my property survey and permits. But when Helen presented her made-up map, they leaned in with great interest. I couldn't believe it. They took Helen's word over legal documents. I angrily explained that I've lived here for 15 years and have always maintained that land. There's not a shred of evidence it belongs to the homeowner association, but the smug president silenced me, stating they trusted Helen's expertise in the matter, so the construction halt stood. After the infuriating meeting, I decided to take matters to court. My lawyer assured me we had an airtight case with the property survey as evidence. We filed a lawsuit demanding the homeowner association stop obstructing my approved construction. I sent Helen notice that she'd be seeing me in court. That finally wiped the entitled smirk off her wrinkled face. She realized I wasn't backing down. At the hearing, my lawyer presented the property survey, land rights documentation, and construction permits. He also submitted photos dating back over a decade showing the land as part of my yard, not homeowner association territory. Helen took the stand and tried to claim the homeowner association had acquired the land years ago but had no records due to poor bookkeeping. Yeah, right. The judge didn't buy her tale either. Sweating and stuttering, Helen stuck to her absurd story that the homeowner association owned the strip of land despite having zero proof. The judge dismissed her assertions, stating she failed to substantiate her claims. He officially ruled in my favor, declaring the land rightfully mine. He ordered the homeowner association to cease obstructing my approved construction immediately. The board president sat there red-faced as the judge reprimanded them for overstepping their bounds. As we left court, I saw Helen chatting up the police officer who had originally sided with her. She was wheedling away, insisting the ruling was wrong. Thankfully, the officer wasn't falling for her bull this time. He told her the judge's word was final and she needed to leave me alone. Helen still tries to pester me about her land, but I just laugh and threaten to sue her personally if she interferes again. The homeowner association board won't even make eye contact anymore when I see them around. This whole ordeal just proves you can't trust cops or homeowner associations to recognize facts, but if you stand up for yourself and fight back, justice can prevail. The next one is a petty revenge story. Our Karen neighbor complained about another neighbor's motorcycle. It's a stock bike, so he didn't add any loud muffles, and prior to this, he was very respectful. He would start the bike and drive conservatively out of the neighborhood. But then enters Karen. Karen complains about everything and everyone knows her. She has complained several times about the motorcycle and calls the cops frequently for dumb things. This time she decides to go too far and tries to prevent the motorcycle from leaving the neighborhood. She nearly ran him over. So now, because Karen literally tried to murder someone, the motorcycle rider starts his motorcycle a few times a day, rides to Karen's house a couple houses down, revs his engine for a few minutes, then speeds away in the most obnoxious way possible. He's even had some of his buddies come by in a sort of "Duck You Karen" parade. I talk to him, we know each other, and he's a decent dude, and he at least agrees to stop doing this at night and to ride safely since there are a lot of kids in the area. I honestly can't blame him at all because everybody hates this idiot, and she deserves much worse considering what she did. I just wish there was a legal way to get her to stop being such an idiot. The next one is a malicious compliance story. So I remembered a story of malicious compliance, as recounted to me by a good friend of mine. My friend is a hairdresser by trade and works at a very upscale salon. I go to her myself and can attest to her being amazing. Anyway, this salon had one customer who had been passed around from hairdresser to hairdresser, bullying every single one she saw. This woman was an absolute holy terror. She made count 'em, three separate hairdressers cry. The only reason she was still a client of the salon was that her mom was friends with the owner. She was a relatively young gal, maybe in her mid-20s, with very long bottle blonde hair past her waist, that she insisted to everyone who wasn't her hairdresser was her natural color. It was very much not. She went to the salon religiously so no one would ever find out her secret shame. She blamed her hairdresser for all her hair problems. many of which were the results of heavy bleaching and how much heat she used on her hair and her refusal to follow care instructions, and was never satisfied with anything. So everything shuts down in our state, and she screams at my friend to come do her hair for her, because she can't have her boyfriend finding out she's not a natural blonde. Anyway, my friend refuses, and despite Karen's threats, she knows that the salon owner knows she's too damn good at her job and has too loyal a customer base to fire her, so she thinks no more of it until a few months later when the salon reopens. And lo and behold, who should appear in the appointment book but Karen. So the day arrives and Karen shows up with her hair dyed jet black, and not very well dyed either. My friend is shocked because Karen's always made such a big deal about being a blonde, and how even though she gets her hair bleached, she really is a natural blonde and just enhancing her color a little. My friend asks Karen what they were doing that day, and Karen demands to be made blonde again. My friend is like, okay, that's going to be a process because this idiot has used black box dye, which is really hard to get out. For those of you who don't know, getting dyed dark hair to blonde is usually something done in stages, so the hair has a chance to recover a bit between bleaching sessions to avoid breakage. Karen is like, no, I'm going to be blonde when I leave here today, or I'm telling your boss that you see clients at home sometimes and getting you fired. My friend sometimes does friends' hair at home for a lower price because she's a sweetheart, which her boss is fine with. And it's your fault I had to dye my own hair this color because my boyfriend would have seen my roots if I hadn't done something. My friend is tired of Karen's BS at this point, but it's a slow day, and she has time. She explains to Karen that if she takes her blonde all in one go, her hair will be fried, and she'll likely end up having to lose a lot of length. Karen scoffs and rolls her eyes and is like, that's never happened before, and my hair's so healthy, I'm sure it will be fine if you don't screw it up. Friend recommends at least using Olaplex, a product that helps prevent damage. Karen says she thinks it's a scam to overcharge customers and won't pay for it. Cue malicious compliance. Friend is like, okay, but makes several co-workers be witnesses that this is what Karen is asking for after friend explained the risks. Friend, meanwhile, has formulated a fiendish scheme. After that, friend goes through the whole process of bleaching Karen's hair. She has to do it like 4 times or something, and she checks with Karen after each one that she's absolutely sure she has to be all the way back to champagne blonde by the end of the day, and recommends stopping at some of the nice auburn or strawberry blonde shades in between for now. But Karen insists her boyfriend hates her hair anything but her natural blonde. My friend knows she will refuse because when has a Karen ever decided at the 11th hour to be reasonable? With each bleaching, there's more breakage and Karen's hair feels worse. My friend knows Karen's hair won't survive this, but Karen absolutely refuses to let her stop. Eventually, at long last, my friend manages to get Karen's hair to the required level, and so she starts to rinse Karen's hair. It starts breaking off in her hand. The length of her hair is melted, fried, destroyed. My friend gets the bleach out and immediately conditions the ever-loving duck out of it while explaining to Karen that exactly what my friend said would happen has happened. Karen says she must be exaggerating and insists it's fine. Friend wraps what's left of Karen's hair in a towel and takes her back over to her station where she shows Karen the problem. Everything past a little beyond chin length is pretty much gone. Karen shrieks and accuses my friend of everything under the sun, incompetence. Operating without a license. She most definitely has her license. A personal vendetta, etc., etc. My friend eventually calms her down and tells her she'll do her best to cut it so it looks decent for free. She even has the perfect cut in mind. It'll suit Karen perfectly. My friend gives Karen the sharpest, most beautifully cut angled bob you've ever seen. I've seen it thanks to my friend showing me Karen's Insta, that despite the incredible precision and skill showcased, is unequivocally and perfectly the Karen. Blown out and styled to, "Can I speak to the manager?" Perfection. Karen starts crying because the cut makes her look 40. She wants to speak to the manager. My friend gets the manager and Karen throws a fit, threatening to sue and how dare they, and how his employee did this to mock her and so on and so forth while my friend stands there looking completely innocent. The boss then asks friend her side of the story and the other hairdressers back her up, and that the cut is just her trying to make the best of what's left of her hair. Even the boss by now is sick of Karen's BS, and Karen is forced to pay the huge sum of money owed for how much time was spent bleaching her hair, much of which is now gone, and leaves swearing never to come back. Her boyfriend, a cop, calls up later and threatens to assault my friend for doing that to Karen's hair, against his wishes. And my friend tells him if he tries anything, she's going to tell his superiors and every news agency in the city. Nothing further happens, but he eventually dumps Karen because he doesn't like girls with short hair. The next one is an entitled People Story. I, 31F, am in shock over the throwdown that I witnessed between my mom, 60s F, and my entitled brother, 26M. Bro has been mooching off of my mom and I. She and I co-own our house since 2017. He lived rent-free for 4 years. Finally, my mom managed to force him to pay his form of rent by paying some utility bills, a total of about $450 a month since 2021. He has never paid his bills willingly. Every month he demands to know why he has to pay the amount and demands proof of the cost, as if my mom was trying to swindle him for some reason. And every time he has finally given us the money for the bills, he has told us he was bailing us out since we must be broke. Why else would we be making him pay for us? Recently, he has been going off about how he can't wait to leave the house and he wants to save his money to move out, but he simply can't with the cost of all these bills weighing him down. My mother told him since he is so serious about moving out, she will gladly pay for his portion of the bills. She works seasonally, and all he would need to pay was his car insurance. She said she would give him until May 31st to save up as much as he could. He would then need to move out. Since that agreement was made, Entitled Bro has gone on 2 trips out of state. One was a 4-day bachelor party in New Orleans, has gone to poker nights with his friends multiple times, refuses to so much as wash a dish, and leaves a greasy mess wherever he goes in the house. Meanwhile, my mom has worked 6 days a week to make enough money to cover his expenses. And yet, Entitled Bro hasn't thanked her once. Every time she asks him to do the simplest task, he ignores her or claims he forgot, despite how often she reminds him. Today, she finally snapped. His one bill that he's responsible for was due 4 days ago, and he never paid her. She texted him and reminded him verbally many times. She asked via text one last time today, and he finally responded by asking her to give him a receipt, so she can prove his insurance costs what she claimed it cost, and he never sent the money. She lost it and said she is sick of catering to him without so much as a thank you. She said she wants peace, and he is no longer worth the trouble she goes through. She said she is removing him from the car insurance tomorrow, and that he no longer has until the end of May to move out. He has 3 weeks. That's it. She's threatened to kick him out before and hasn't gone through with it yet, but this time felt different because I have never seen her go nuclear like that before, and Entitled Bro must have felt that same way because he went through the 5 stages of grief about 100 times during that fight. He screamed, cried, accused, name-called, tried to pull me in to defend him, tried to pull in his dad, lives 2 hours away, to defend him, tried to call my mom's sisters to defend him, claimed getting his own insurance was an emotional burden, claimed she needs professional help because she is obviously out of her mind, said that she obviously doesn't care about him. Otherwise, why would she so cruelly deprive him of such valuable resources? He went on and on for 3 hours, and she didn't budge. I don't want to get my hopes up that she'll stick to that 3-week deadline, but this is the closest she's come to evicting him. I hope this will scare him into leaving before she has to. The next one is an entitled Parents Story. To those that don't know, my daughter, 6 Yo, was born from a one-night stand with Jeff. We were never romantically involved. It was a simple one-night stand and we did use contraceptives, but they failed. It happens. A few months ago, Jeff went full psycho and tried to convince me to leave my daughter with him so she could serve as a replacement child for his wife who recently lost their infant daughter. I refused, and right now, we're in the middle of some legal issues. Now for today, I thankfully didn't deal with Jeff. Instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. I'm going to be very blunt. I am completely detached from religion. I'm not an atheist, just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church. That's the leading religion in my home country. I respect it, and most of my family is Catholic, so I have a detached respect for church officials. Today I was doing some paperwork when I got a call about a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events, so I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in, and things at first seemed rather polite. Shake hands, asking how things were, the usual chit-chat. Then the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child, and that apparently I lived a life of debauchery and hate. His words. I was taken aback and agreed I was a single mother, but that I didn't see how I lived in debauchery and hate. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter is prohibited from spending time with her father, and that I'm constantly sleeping around with men instead of living a godly life. How he was worried and thought it would be best I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family rather than see me sell myself. Angry was an understatement. I did keep it civil simply because I was at work and I had no intentions of screaming to a religious man at work. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me. She lived a safe and happy life. My personal affairs were my own, and that I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, he should probably leave as I had other things to attend to. And he then showed his hand, and that's how I know it was Jeff's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. At that I laughed and simply said no. I once again recommended he left, and if he didn't, I would be calling security. He left saying he would try to speak to me again when I'm not being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security not to let him into my office again. And I called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have security feed from him walking into my office. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.